Max Verstappen may have won his third title this weekend in Qatar, but it's not over yet. I don't think it's too crazy to say that we've witnessed greatness from Max this season, and that it could get even more greater. With Max being so dominant this season, the Drivers' Championship title won't be the only thing the Dutchman has in his sights, as many of Formula One's most prestigious records are still up for grabs in the last 5 races. So let's take a look at some of the records that Max could and probably should hold by the end of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. First and most obvious one is probably race victories in a season, and I know the Formula One calendar is getting bigger and bigger, so you could argue that this is getting easier every year, but Max already holds this record from the 2022 season. He managed 15 victories on the way to his 2022 title, but he already has 14 victories so far this season, which is incredible, and that number could bump up to 19 with 5 races left to go. He has Austin, Mexico, Brazil, Vegas, and Abu Dhabi in front of him, which should be fairly light work for the Dutchman, with maybe only Brazil being the toughest one in there. So if it's not 19, it's probably going to be 18 victories for Max Verstappen. With that, it would mean that Max Verstappen also breaks a record held since 1952. Alberto Ascari won 75% of the Grand Prix held during the 1952 season, but the calendar was considerably smaller than it is today, meaning if Max Verstappen were to win 19 out of the 22 races this season, he would have an insane win percentage of 86.3%, and he can actually beat this record by only winning 17 races, as if I'm saying only 17 races, but winning 3 out of the last 5 just seems inevitable for Max Verstappen. And that incredibly high win percentage from Max has meant that we've only seen 2 other drivers on the top step of the podium this season, with Sergio Perez picking up a couple of victories towards the beginning, and Carlos Sainz with that incredible victory in Singapore. Now, if that stays the same, at the end of the year, it would match the record for the lowest number of race winners in a season. It has happened 6 times before in Formula One that we've only seen 3 race winners over the course of a year, but we've never seen just 2 race winners over the course of a season, and Carlos Sainz has completely ruined that for Red Bull. The final win-related record to touch upon for Max Verstappen is the career wins list. Now, Lewis Hamilton tops this by a long way with 103 victories, and Michael Schumacher is still a long distance off with 91 as well, but Max Verstappen, at the age of 26, could have 54 race victories, only 54 race victories by the end of the season, which would make him the 3rd most decorated driver ever. Sebastian Vettel is currently 3rd with 53 race wins. Alain Prost has 51 race victories in 4th place, and therefore if Max Verstappen isn't 3rd, he'll probably be 4th on this list by the end of the year, and then we'll jump into 3rd place very early on in the 2024 season. And actually, whilst on the topic of Sebastian Vettel, another record of his that Max can't take but can match is the number of pole positions in a season, a category that Max Verstappen isn't quite as ruthless in compared to his race victories. Sebastian managed 15 in the 2011 season with Red Bull, and so far this season, Max has taken pole position 10 times with 5 races to go. So if Max manages to get pole position in every race that he has left this season, he can match this record, but with the McLarens and the Ferraris looking pretty good in quali pace, and the Red Bull looking like it's more set up for race pace compared to quali, this might be the first record that Max doesn't actually achieve. He has, though, already taken the record for the most pole positions converted into race victories, and he did it in Qatar this weekend. Nigel Mansell managed to turn 9 of his pole positions into victories during the 1992 season, and Max has turned every pole position start that he's had this year into a race victory, meaning that he already has 10 and could get up to 15, again, if he manages pole position in the last 5 races and wins all 5 of those last races. But I said before, getting pole is a harder task, so I think this record could maybe be 12 or 13 by the end of the year at most. However, let's step away from qualifying and go back to what Max is really good at in the racing, because the record number of podiums in a season is 18, and it's set by Max Verstappen in his first championship winning season, which I thought might have been beaten in 2022, but strangely not. So far this year, though, Max Verstappen has been on the podium 16 times out of 17 races. He's only been off the podium in Singapore, and even then he managed to finish in 5th place. That is just how dominant he has been this season. So the likelihood of him getting 2 more podiums out of the last 5 races is basically guaranteed, and I think this one could easily end up being 21 out of 22. And Singapore has really ruined quite a lot of records for Max. It also broke his streak of 15 podiums in a row, and the record is actually Michael Schumacher with 19 podiums in a row. So that's been completely reset for Max Verstappen too. Aside from podiums, there is also sprint races, and now I know that the sprints were only introduced in 2021, so these records are fresh to say the least, but Bottas managed to win 2 of the sprint races in 2021 with Monza Monza and Brazil. Verstappen then did match this last season with sprint wins in Imola and Austria. However, because this season we've jumped from 3 sprints to 6 sprint weekends, Max Verstappen winning in Austria and Belgium, he still has the chance to get to 3 victories. Obviously, Charles Leclerc won in Baku, Oscar Piastri won in Qatar, but there is still Austin and Vegas yet to come. So Max Verstappen just needs to win 1 out of those 2 sprints to then take this record for himself. And another record that Max Verstappen already holds from 2022, but could go on to break again in 2023, is the number of points picked up in a season. Last year, he managed 454 points. This year, after the sprint and race in Qatar, he has 433. So he needs 21 points from 5 races, with 125 for wins, 16 from sprints, and 5 from fastest laps still on the table, meaning 146 points still available for Max Verstappen. He's not going to beat this record. He is going to absolutely obliterate it. But not only is that a crazy amount of points, it could also lead to the biggest gap between first and second place that we have ever seen. Now, Sebastian Vettel won the championship in 2013 with 397 points. Fernando Alonso was second with 242, meaning there was a 155 point gap between the champion and the next best driver. Max Verstappen already has a lead over Sergio Perez of 209 points. As I said before, 146 points left on the table, so Sergio Perez could close that gap, or it could get to over 300 points, and I'll let you decide which one's more likely. Finally, whilst mentioning points that are left, fastest laps in a season is another record that is available for Max Verstappen, although surprisingly, this one could go down to the wire because Michael Schumacher managed 10 fastest laps in the 2004 season. After Qatar, Max only has 8 fastest laps this season, and you might remember Austria, where Red Bull and Max Verstappen had a little bit of an argument about fastest laps. Red Bull don't often risk it and go for the fastest lap. He only has 2 fastest laps since the summer break, but the other teams are absolutely desperate for that extra point that it grants them. So Max getting to 11 in 5 races will actually be quite close, I think. So as you can see, even though Max has won the championship, there are still a lot of records up for grabs before the end of the season, which begs the question, is this the best season that we've seen from a Formula 1 driver ever in history? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, I also put together this video here on some hot takes from the Qatar Grand Prix. So click that link and I'll see you over there.